table and we taking our portions. Of course, the discourse is a sativa show where the content and the guest is unbelievable, but we speak in codes. It's the podcast of the culture, so you already know. We from that big West Coast, boy, where it never snows, where the topics get hot, but the rosin is cold. Here's the next episode, yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to another show of Joint Forces with your host, Luke Scarmazzo. I got a really, really special episode for you today. We have international genetics guru, High Times Hall of Famer, grower, software analyst, California Culinary Academy graduate, renowned boss breeder, author, autoflower aficionado, veteran podcast host, public speaker, executive chef, former president of the San Francisco Chef Association, publisher, the Sultan of Seeds, James Lau.
Hey, thank you very much, man.
Man, welcome. Welcome, man.
So our roles are reversed this time.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. The tables always reverse in life, don't they?
For sure.
Yeah. So, man, it's awesome to really have you on the show. Really, like, to be on, like, you know, the court with somebody who's a pro. Like, I feel like, you know, I'm on the court right now with like Michael Jordan or LeBron James right now. You know,
I'm trying like Spud Webb.
Okay.
Yeah, Spud Webb.
Yeah.
But yeah.
A little height differential, right?
Height, you know?
I think you might have a few inches on Spud Webb, actually.
I do for sure.
Yeah. Like usually, like when I bring people on the show, I like to start at the beginning. Growing up, like where'd you grow up at, James?
I grew up in the Bay Area. I was actually born in Portland. I lived in Texas for a little bit, but you know, I would say if you know where'd I grow up, it would be the Bay Area.
Yeah.
You know, East Bay. You know, I did spend a lot of time in San Francisco, Oakland, but the Walnut Creek, Pleasant Hill area, definitely, you know, it has a special place in my heart. Every time I try to leave, I end up back there. Yeah, there's something special about that area for sure. And especially with the cannabis scene in the East Bay with Oaksterdam and everything else.
I mean, the East Bay with cannabis has always been a mecca.
Yeah.
Even like in the early days when we had our dispensary, you know, the only other early dispensaries were really in the East Bay. Yeah. Oakland, Hayward popped up over on East 14. Frisco was even kind of later in the game. I mean, you had the cannabis clubs and the, you know, the HIV Dennis Perone collectives and stuff, but the actual like dispensaries that like that what is the predecessor of what today is? The third floor.
Where GDP got its name.
Yes.
Which, you know, GDP is so close to my heart. Same with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in fact, we got ZDP to share with you today. I brought something special. So this is something that we pheno hunted. It's got Skittles. It's got GDP in it.
Okay.
And I brought a nice joint of it. And it's different. And it tastes just like that down to the roach. Just how Skittles is candy, that is very floral. It's got decent structure. I think that's the future right there. I mean, that's
we'll
exciting, talk about it
man.
A year from now. And I think it's special in a way that few things are. I mean, I've done a bunch of breeding over the years, and really, when I see stuff that's special, I mean, this is special to me. Hopefully it's special to everybody else, but to me, when I smoke this, I feel like it's feel-good weed like Whitethorn Rose.
Okay.
You know, if we're talking about breeding for effect, I feel like this fits that category of feel-good.
Okay.
You know, I think GDP was probably stronger, but this has its own thing where I feel like I could smoke it in the morning, I could smoke it in the afternoon or at night, and it just makes me feel amazing.
Right. So you're saying it's a Z Granddaddy Cross.
It's a Z Granddaddy Cross. It has some other
stuff
in
it. Some other special.
It does. It has some other special stuff in it.
I can smell some other like undertones in there. It's I really liked it. It does have a really sweet profile to it though.
Yeah.
And that was always reminiscent of the old perps.
Right.
Which is like one of the things that's missing a lot of times when you see the purple around now. It's like people don't understand, like, when we used to say purple back in the day, like that was actually a profile. That was actually a particular flavor.
There was a flavor associated with the color when we were talking about purple all day long. It was floral.
Right.
It didn't have to have gas. You know, it didn't have to be candy like a lot of stuff today. But that floral characteristic that carried over, you know, and there was a handful of stuff that was purple, whether it was coming from the hills, and a lot of it had that floral note.
Yes. And that floral note was what made it distinct.
Right.
And the cool thing is Skittles, similar in profile, but will have like, I think, a really cool combination with that because of just that. Now you have a floral, and GDP used to almost have a reminiscent of a perfumey type flavor to it too. And you'll see some of that undertone in Skittles nowadays.
Right.
That's going to be exciting, man.
Yeah. So I brought a joint to smoke with you today. There's only a handful of them because we as a pheno hunt, we just grew one plant of it and we selected that one plant. We did, it started with 1,000 seeds that got narrowed to 660 because of regs and other things like that, males and stuff that I didn't like. Then from 660, we just narrowed it down to 60. Ooh. Right. And some of them that are already guaranteed standouts that I'm like, okay, these are the superstars.
Right. You can see it.
We're growing 3 lights of each one of those with our cultivation partners.
Okay.
And then the other ones we're regrowing to see how they perform.
Okay.
So I brought actually a big box full of the different expressions that we decided to keep. We got some really cool Blue Dream crosses. We got some hazes. Ooh. I feel like haze is making a comeback.
I'm seeing that a lot lately, actually. Yeah. Hazes and like citrus. People are really feeling the hazes and citrus.
They're hating on them a minute ago, and now they're coming back in a major way. It's so funny how that works. People will be so fickle with things, especially in the cannabis space. What they like, and what they don't like, they don't like. And stoners are pretty particular with what they like. Right.
Super particular. And, that's actually funny, like going back to the GDP. So while I'm in prison, I'm talking to my partners that are out here still doing their thing and stuff. And when they tell me that they start going to the stores and the buyers didn't want granddaddy anymore.
Yeah.
And I was like, they didn't want granddaddy anymore. What?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, man. They're like, it's everywhere now. Nobody really wants it now. OG Kush is the big craze right now. It was like a Kush craze going for a second.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was heartbroken, but then I kind of like realized that that's the way the game's always been, right? It's always
the
like
P. Diddy of weed.
Right. Right.
But nobody wanted it. At a certain point, it was the biggest thing there was, and Blue Dream was like that too.
Right.
But then when it passed, nobody wanted Blue Dream. Still, people are hating on Blue Dream a little bit, even though I love it and I love the nostalgia. There's a lot of people that I see even hate on some of my posts that I post when I post Blue Dream crosses.
Right. Which is foolish. Like granted, like if we have the pick of anything that we wanted, I wouldn't be picking Blue Dream out for my first smoke. But you're right. There's a nostalgia to it that, in the early days, that was one of the top dogs.
Right.
Especially in the third floor era.
Dude, seriously, that was
they had some huge Blue Dream back then.
Dude, and real good Blue Dream is sticky. It checks all the boxes on the bag appeal. Maybe it's not your effect, but as far as like the nose, it was loud. You open the bag and it would hit you in the face.
Oh yeah.
And maybe it's not your particular profile, but it was a beautiful plant. Still is. And in fact, I got a cross that I made. It's a Blue Dream Double Lemon Cherry. We selected 3 different phenos. And I brought them here today.
Okay.
We've been playing with the name. So on the website, they're called Dreamsicle.
Okay.
But we've changed it to, and then it was New Dream spelled NEU.
Okay.
And now I feel like Dream Candy is the proper name based on the flower. If you're familiar with Blue Dream, tell me what you think about that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it has the nose, right? But it has a different structure.
It even has a similar like resin gland, like the amount.
Right.
Because Blue Dream was always frosty.
It was always frosty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a real big fan of this. And then when you smoke it, it's very nostalgic. If you're one of those OGs that really like Blue Dream, or if you just want to bring back the past.
Man, you're showing me all this stuff and like, I can't even smoke. I can't wait until I can get off probation.
Yeah.
Like I'm on fed probation right now and you're bringing me like all this super candy. But listen, I want you to like go through these with me though. And we're going to hang out here and chief them and like I got to see how all these new strains are working for you.
Right. Perfect.
So again, like let's back it up. So you grew up Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you with weed like immediately, or has it come later?
No, since I was 14 years old, I fell in love with the plant. First time I smoked, I didn't really get high. We smoked it out of a can.
I'll second that. I didn't get high my first time either.
And the second time I got really high.
Second time I got ripped like to where I thought it was laced.
Outer space, tripping out, bright colors. It was wild, but life-changing in so many ways. 91 was a good year too. 91 was great for ChemDog, the Grateful Dead.
Right.
That magic moment that the ChemDog bag seeds were exchanged was in 91.
Ooh.
And so 91 was just a beautiful year.
Man, I was still smoking Mexican in 91.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it real.
I mean, I was too.
Bricks up for $3.50, $2.50.
I smoked everything. But I was in Boy Scouts, so we had the hookup. So
Right.
we had the plug in Boy Scouts, and we were able to get really good weed. Plus, being in the Bay Area, it was like access to drugs. It was everywhere.
Well, the Bay always had fire weed.
Right.
Like even when like the real good, what we used to call green bud back in the day, right? Or the kind or whatever. That really, you know, materialized really in the Bay Area first is where we had to go to start trying to get it. So hats off to the Bay. The Bay's been a mecca of cannabis from day one.
Yeah, it's special.
So 14 years old.
14 years old. Fell in love with weed. You know, and I think at that age, I loved weed so much. It was like there was guys that were into Playboy magazines and I was into High Times magazines. By the time I was 16, 17, I had stacks of High Times magazines and I wanted to know everything about the plant. And I was just so excited about it. You know, and I go to other countries now where it's just coming online and I see that same excitement in people's eyes. And I love that more than anything. You know?
I do too. I see that in other states, like with the medical and like the dispensaries and all that. You see the excitement. So you're right. It's like palatable. So do you get like, when do you start growing? When's your first time you start getting into growing?
So I got some seeds from my senior patrol leader in Boy Scouts, actually some High Times Cup winning seeds. And my brother actually popped those seeds and put them in our backyard. And my parents would come home at night. So we had a fence with a gate on it to our neighbor's backyard. My brother would stash them in the neighbor's backyard. And it's so funny because I feel like my brother had such a green thumb for his first round to be able to grow and water it and put the love into it. And then he told too many people about it. People
that's
jumped
the
the fence,
downfall to every grow.
They jacked it.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I moved out when I was 17 and had my own grow in a closet. And we had a Phototron originally.
Okay.
You know,
with the doors that opened up on. Okay. Yeah.
And it didn't grow the best stuff, but it didn't grow the worst stuff either. The fact that we were growing it was exciting. You know, just the fact that you have a plant and it's alive and you can smoke it.
Preaching to the choir.
That got ruined too.
Yeah.
So my friend actually, I was going snowboarding for I think 3 days and I asked him to take care of it. And I gave him the directions. I told him, you know, I think it was one tablespoon of fish emulsion to go in 1 gallon. Right. Well, he put 1 gallon of fish emulsion in the plant. And so we had Salmon Creek Big Bud, right? Like literally it smelled like salmon. We tried flushing it. We tried everything. I was so sad. But then one of my other buddies ended up buying it. So it ended up being, you know, not the worst thing. I wouldn't smoke it though. It was something that was so bad and it was so sad. I didn't even want to smoke it.
Oh man. So stacks of High Times magazines while your friends have Playboy. You end up making the Hall of Fame of High Times.
Yeah. In fact, so the funny thing
is High Times was cool. When High Times was still cool.
Yeah. So my favorite issue growing up was the $1 Million Grow Room. I read that. And then literally, I think it was 15 years later, I was in the $1 Million Grow Room article.
Wow.
Right. And so I was excited about that. We're going to do a $1 Billion Grow Room article one of these days.
I like that.
The $1 billion facility. And I think with genetics, anything's possible, especially with genetic licensing, IP. The future of the industry is pretty wild and open still.
Wide open.
We're scratching the surface of the stuff that we're doing, you know.
Surface, I agree with that. We don't even know the places that this plant is going to go yet. The pathways that it's going to explore and where science and innovation is going to take it is huge.
Right.
But that's impressive, man. The edition I think I remember the most, like when I was young, was the How to Roll a Blunt one.
Nice.
Yeah, the Be Real, and that was because I wasn't even really into rolling blunts yet. Like at that point, we were still like packing like the metal pipe. Yeah. You know, at that point, but.
So I got a great story about that actually. So I was in Amsterdam in 2014 and I believe it was March and I was hanging out and I was at the greenhouse and my buddy Yoa calls up and he's like, dude, do you want to hang out with Be Real and Exhibit in Demrick? They were on tour.
Dope.
And I was like, dude, but of course, that sounds amazing. And so I go there and I'm rolling up joints. I'm sharing the weed because I got bomb weed back then and I had it over in Amsterdam and it was amazing. And so I'm sharing my weed with them. These guys are all rolling up. And it's funny because Be Real had the funky field tips. And that was before, it was prototypes before they were even out. Wow. And he's teaching Exhibit how to roll a joint. Exhibit knew how to roll blunts, but he didn't know how to roll a joint. Right. And these guys are going back and forth talking shit. And it was one of the funniest things ever.
That is awesome, man. Yeah. That's history right there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And shout out to Be Real and Exhibit. Yeah. Because those, both of them were advocates for this plant before it was cool to be.
Yeah.
Right. And now they're getting like the due credit that they deserve, both of them.
hardworking people.
Hardworking
these guys are super hardworking. I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand how hardworking you have to be a successful musician. Same thing with the cannabis industry. If you want to be successful, you have to be a hardworking individual.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like, I think the way the media portrayed like the industry, right? When it first, like the inception of it was like, it was just bundles of money just coming, and you really didn't have to do much. Like open for business, or just open your grow room and you were going to be rich,
right?
Or just get the license and you were rich, right?
Sure.
And I think what people are starting to realize now that that's not how it works. It doesn't work like that in any industry, right? You have to put the work in. If you don't put the work in, you're not going to see what works. And I think a lot of people are realizing that now, that you can't just like weed. You can't just want to grow. You can't just get a license and think that everything's going to fall in place after that. Like, there's a lot of hard work goes into this stuff.
Even being just a good grower doesn't mean you're going to be successful in the cannabis industry. I mean, it's like, you got to fail a lot too. That's what I've learned more than anything. It's okay to fail. It's okay to fail, but it's not okay to quit. Right. So like, you got to just put the effort in time and time again and do the best you can do and really try to learn from your mistakes. I think that's the big thing with business is like, you go and you have these ideas, and just because you love it doesn't mean you're going to be successful with, other people might not like it. Same thing with breeding, and you got to do it for yourself. I mean, I feel like from being a chef, I have a good understanding of what other people like as far as flower, but at the end of the day, I smoke the flower that I grow and breed. And I love smoking flower, and it still excites me. And the day that it doesn't is the day I'm done with this, right? Where I get up and I don't want to get out of bed because I'm sick of this thing, right? I'll be done with it, right? I enjoy what I do. I love what I do. I love being able to talk to people like you on podcasts. It's great when you're with like-minded people that are just as excited as you are about stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty special.
No, it is, definitely. There is a clip that I saw Rick Rubin, and he was talking about like art and how you create it, right? And whatever you're passionate about. And he said the audience comes last.
It's true.
And man, that resonated with me.
It's devotional, right? Being a musician, being an artist, being a breeder, right? Because we're talking about stuff that's so subjective to the individual that, Rick Rubin special, he's never been a musician. He's someone I look up to a lot. And, he might get a lot of hate, whatever, but he is so talented because he's not a musician.
Right.
He just has really good taste.
Right.
Right. Like really, really good taste.
Right.
He actually produced an album when he was with American Eagle, and American Eagle hired him to help produce an album for Man-Made God. And this was in 2001. One of the best unknown albums of all time because of 9/11. Nobody heard it. They didn't advertise it. American Eagle, their office was in the Twin Towers.
Oh, shit.
And so they never got the marketing, even though the album's out there and you could probably find it on Apple Music and other things. But, it's like time and time again, he's been right. Rick Rubin's been right over and over and over. And that's why people pay him what they pay him. I mean, he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right. I mean, from everybody too, from
all
rock
genres.
artists. Yeah. It doesn't matter to Jay-Z. And yeah, when I saw it and he talked about creation and like, finding what like you love, and then just putting it out there, and then chances are that there's going to be other people that love it too. And that I think it's the same thing with genetics. It's like it's where we found success at Profit the most. Is like we just go and find what we really love about the plant, and then try to express it to the customer, and then hopefully they love it too, and they have. And I think that's when you find that lane, when you hit that mark, like that golden zone of what you love. I think there's an authenticity to it, right? That resonates into the audience and resonates into your customer base.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes things successful is the authenticity side of it. Podcasts even, when you have authentic guests that have amazing stories, I feel like I'm blessed to have so many great guests. The podcast really isn't about me.
Right.
At the same time, my podcast is about all these great stories.
Right.
It's like I've had some of the most amazing people on my podcast, and those are the ones that make the show.
Right. No, you're 100%. I feel that too. And it's weird. Like it's a juxtaposition, right? Because you're usually a celebrity, right? You're usually the guy that people are constantly putting the mic in front of and handing you the mic. So to be able to like flip that and like highlight your guests and highlight, and you do a great job of it for real. Like I really felt edified when I was on your show, and to do that, was that a weird shift to you, or did it just come naturally?
No, I mean, I think I've done a lot of public speaking throughout my life, and I'm comfortable talking to other people. And, I did a podcast on the Future Cannabis Project on their platform. I did 42 episodes.
Okay.
Right. And so that was during COVID when it was like not in person. It was much easier to do in some regards. And then I always said I wanted my own show. It literally took me like a year and 3/4 from the time I ended that till the next episode of the James Loud podcast. Because originally it was the James Loud show. We went to the James Loud podcast. And it's something I've always really liked doing. I look up to Joe Rogan.
Right.
He's one of my big inspirations. Yeah. I mean, his podcasts are amazing. And I saw how from the beginning till where he's at now, he's like gotten better and better and better. And, it's like if you listen to some of his old, it's not that they're bad. It's just that he is so much more better. And I feel like almost more intelligent. And I wanted a little piece of that. Right. So that and Anthony Bourdain. So we're going to be doing travel shows here in the near future.
Oh, I like that.
So, yeah.
And that actually touches into the culinary lane too.
Exactly. Yeah. And culinary and cannabis go hand in hand.
Right. So you were a graduate of the California Culinary Academy. Yeah. What?
A long time ago. Right. But yeah, I worked as a chef back when cannabis was illegal. It's still federally illegal, but back when it was really illegal, you had to have a forward-facing job. My parents, I had family that was in the industry up north. My aunt, she's one of my biggest inspirations, and someone who I've idolized to a degree and looked up to my whole life. She always said you had to have another job. You have to have something to fall back on.
Smart hustler.
So, yeah. And she was in the 60s and 70s. I mean, she did 7 years in prison as well.
Okay.
But she's extremely special to me. In fact, I have a portrait of her on my wall. I mean, she is the one, and she's very Buddhist, right?
Okay.
And very in touch with the earth. And I always, slap me on the back of the head when I did stupid stuff, but someone I could always ask advice for. But she always said, you need to have a job. I worked in computers. I worked as an engineer. I've done all kinds of stuff. I was a roofer when I was younger. I was a personal trainer. I worked as a personal trainer for a couple of years. So I've done a lot of stuff that's kind of all come full circle now. And I take a lot of the stuff that I learned with other things and I can apply it to cannabis.
Yeah. And it's crazy how like the path of life puts you through so many different genres and jobs and all this different stuff, right? And some of it seems like so disconnected at the times that you're doing it. And then when you come back to this point and you look back and you go, wow, like I gained so much experience from that and so many other things that now like it makes me better at cannabis, or it makes me better at cooking, or it makes me
a better manager. Working as a chef. Yeah, it makes me a better person, And I think you never appreciate the sweet unless you've had the sour, right? That's one of my big sayings, and it's the truth. So if you've never been broke, you don't understand what it's like to have money. Right. If you're young, I had a lot of money early on when I was young from hustling. I didn't appreciate money, so I didn't save nearly as much money as I probably should have. Mm-hmm. But once you're broke a few times and you make money and then lose it and then make money and lose it, you really have an appreciation for a dollar.
Yeah.
And how far a dollar can go. But working as a chef taught me, it taught me leadership. It taught me how to work with a team and how to treat people well so they want to stay. But also having a firm foot. And when people want to, they don't listen to you, you have to be able to show respect and also, tell people, manage.
Right. No, I could see like the stresses of a kitchen and the timing and all that stuff could make a real good team building like experience, or show you who's not really a team player.
Well, it shows you who you really are. At the end of the day, you learn about yourself a lot from working with other people because it's also teaching. You have to be able to teach people because they're an extension of you at a certain point, whether it's in a grow room or whether we're breeding or whatever we're doing. Those people are just extensions of me, and we're a unit. We work as a team, right? Same thing with the kitchen. You're only as good as your last plate. You're only as good as your last seed pack. If you're breeding, if you put out garbage, people are going to know about it. And, it's like, yeah, you have all this hype. There's some brands out there that have had some really big hype in the last few years. Now they're off the map.
Right. And I mean, listen, the peanut gallery is vicious out there.
Dude, they're vicious.
Especially with growing, like genetics and seeds and stuff like that, man. I mean, I see like some of the stuff on like that people post against like Burner and like, Felipe and like all these like, and they're just ripping them like, I grew 20 seeds and one of them threw bananas at me and your shit is garbage. And I'm like, whoa, like calm down, bro.
They can be so fickle. And it's so funny. One minute you're great. And the next minute online, it's like Burner gets a lot of hate and he is extremely successful and has pushed the plant forward so much more than all these people that are hating on him.
Right.
Right. And so it's funny because you really have to just keep your eyes on the prize and keep moving forward. Because there's always, I feel like if you don't have haters to a certain degree, you're probably not working hard enough.
Right. No, I agree with that. And to me, and Burner, I think, is a good example of it too, is like, I use the analogy of like, we're in the game, right? We're on the field and there's 100,000 people in the stadium.
Yeah.
And some of them are screaming, you suck. And some of them are screaming, you're great. And some of them are saying, do this or run this faster or whatever it is. Right. And if you as an athlete or a pro stop and have to argue with every single person that's in the stadium, right? Like you're not going to get too much accomplished on the field.
Totally. I mean, I think you got to go by the 80-20 rule. You know, I feel like that could apply to that. But, you know, it's like I've had my share of haters. And I think you're one of the people I talked to, and Angela as well. So we know each other from Angela Baca. Big shout out to Angela. She's the best. She's the editor to both of our books. Yeah. She's a very close friend with both of us. And, you know, it's like when I've got my haters, I've bounced, you know, ideas off of you and you've always been positive. And it's always been, you know, motivational to hear from you on what you do about situations. And, you know, it's like, we're blessed to have Angela in our lives too.
Oh yeah, man. She's a killer.
Yeah.
Like as an editor, as a motivator, like I'm a disorganized person. I'm a go-getter, right? I get up early. I get up at like 5, 6. I'm ready to go, like hustle, get this money.
And she gets up at 4.
Yeah. She's before me. But she's like, she keeps me like on track.
That's what she did for me as well. And I feel like she works well with our personality types because we're the type of people that we're not going to stop working. Like I was told that my book would take 2 years to write. And I said, no, I'm going to do it by Christmas. It's going to be done. And Angela woke up at 4 and prepared it every day. I'd have new emails on what I needed to do that day.
Right.
And she really is good at organizing and organizing thoughts where I think I'm a great idea generator. I need someone behind me, you know, and my wife is very similar to that, where my wife is my backup too. She's like Angela.
Your wife's a superstar.
Yeah, she is. She absolutely is.
She is. Shout out Jeanette.
Yeah, Jeanette's amazing. Organized. She's the most organized person I know. Angela is the second most organized person I know, and they're probably equal. But yeah, it takes someone, you know, that has my skill sets to have somebody like that for it to be successful, right? So like whether it's writing a book or other people in the facility, because we have a research and development facility that's come online recently that we've done all this pheno hunting and some amazing stuff.
Right.
But it's not just one person, it takes a team.
No, definitely. Yeah. Even with your visions and the hustle and go get that you got, motivation, you still need a good team around you or we can't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your book. Just released, 4 months ago?
No. My book's been out a full year as of, I think, last week.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got it right here. This is it.
Okay.
You know, right next to your book, I feel like your book's a little thicker, but same cover. You know, I mean, I don't know where you're getting yours printed, but like we went with the US and I'm not super happy with the printer we used, but I think the book came out good.
High quality, super high quality. As soon as Angela like showed me the book and showed me what you guys were doing with it, I was super impressed. That's one of the first things I said was the quality of the book was like first rate for sure. And you can definitely tell. Getting up at 5 a.m, hammering this thing out. Like
I do that before I go to the gym, right? So when I was doing this book project, it was the priority in my life. I would try to get good sleep so that I could wake up, work on the book.
Wow.
Right? Because I had a deadline. I had a deadline in my head and I had somebody else that had told me, you're not going to be able to finish this book. And I don't like when people tell me no. I don't like when people say you can't do something. When you say I can't, I'm going to do my best to, you know, it's like all I can do is my best. But that didn't sound realistic to me. And just because somebody else couldn't doesn't mean I can't.
Right.
Right. And so, you know, and having Angela have my back like that, it was like, so she actually organized my original book. I'd written the book 5 times before we released it. So for my 5th time, I had written basic manuscript and Angela went in and reorganized it. We put the chapters in different order.
Okay.
We got rid of some stuff and she's like, well, this is what I think. Yeah, this is what I think we should do. We need to cut the fat here. We need to add 2 more chapters. the tissue culture chapter. Maybe you get someone that knows tissue culture. We have a chapter on intellectual property. We get Dale Hunt for that. And so we got Matt that works at Apical Biotech, Steristarts. He is the one who wrote the tissue culture chapter, and Matt Schneider. And then we had Dale Hunt do the IP chapter.
Nice.
But we also had I think 20 other contributors, including Reggie Gaudino, who wrote the foreword. So many people that, read the book.
Reggie from Steep Hill.
He was originally from Steep Hill back in the day.
Right. I remember that.
So he's teaching college now somewhere.
Is that right?
Yeah. But yeah, he's amazing. I mean, I just wanted him to review the book. And then when we needed someone to write the foreword, a different person that I asked kind of backed out because they were writing a foreword for a different book. And I was like, that's fine. And we asked Reggie and he said, yes. And the foreword of my book is just, it's special.
When things like that happen, we always think like, oh, I had this vision that I wanted this person to do it or this person to be on it. And then when somebody else steps in, it's always better to me. Yeah. It's like that was how it was meant to happen. That's cool though. That's a lot of history in there. So you're getting up, you're hammering this thing out, priority.
Yeah.
How did it feel like when you got your first copies back?
Well, so there's a good story with that. So the funny thing is when we got there, we saw it, we had Hera Lee do the edits, or the layout. So Hera did the layouts after Angela edited it. Jeanette also helped editing. Okay. Jeanette has a degree in English and stuff.
Jeanette again.
Yeah, so she helped edit it. And then Hera did the layout. And then when we got our first round of books done, because we were on such a tight deadline, I didn't have them to send more like the prototypes. And so they sent the first round and the book fell apart.
Oh.
Yeah, and this was printed in the United States. The pages were falling out, and I had people that had been waiting because they pre-ordered the book. We'd sold $7,000 or $8,000 in pre-orders. And so we had these people waiting, and it was so depressing. And then we finally got the book out. The second printing, they rushed it. They apologized. They rushed it and got the second printing. We only printed 420 copies that were all numbered and autographed.
Wow, that's cool.
Right. And so we
limited release thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
It's a thicker book. It's actually thicker than your book. But then we decided, because we do international shipping, that the book should be a little thinner. Mm-hmm. Not to save money necessarily, but it's better for the planet. I think it's easier to read with a thinner book. We went with a little bit thinner pages.
Okay.
So
you get past this, you get your book, it's in your hand now. You have something to push.
Self-published.
And that's big. That's big. Like,
we put the money up.
Right.
Which is, we make the money. We
believing in yourself.
We believe in ourselves, and we, it's like books aren't cheap. And if I knew how much it was going into, I might not have done it. But if you work with a publisher, you do not make, especially like cannabis books. It's really tough to make a good amount of money from a cannabis book unless you do it yourself, self-published.
Right.
It's really the only way to go. And we sell them on Amazon. We sell them on our website.
Good.
And our books are a little more expensive. It's a $54 book, right? And so that is expensive, but it's from a company that's self-published. We put the energy and money and did it all. And I feel like nobody's really complained about the price.
And the experience.
Yeah.
$54 to get that type of grow knowledge is like a win, super win.
Yeah, and we have information. There's QR codes in the book, so you can go online now with the modern day technology. We have QR codes, so you can go to our website, and we put like the rubric for pheno hunting, so all the little data points that you should be collecting, other information, and we're going to be doing updates rather than releasing a new volume in the near future. We're going to put information on the website for free.
How do you feel about some people talking about this book being next to like the Grow Bible and some of the books that are in legendary grow history?
I mean, I would hope that this book lines up. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like Rick Rubin, it's like you got to do a devotional and hope the world accepts it. Right. And so I'm indifferent. I think I did the best job I could. I would love to see it be next to Ed Rosenthal's books and Rob Clark. These are the guys that I look up to, Mel Frank, Jim, most amazing author. Like, these guys did the work before anybody. And it's like, I wouldn't have been able to do my book without these guys.
Some of the first books I read. Yeah. All those guys. Ed Rosenthal, Jorge Cervantes. So yeah, I definitely can relate. And your book being talked about even in that same paragraph with some of the greats, I think is already a testament to what you've accomplished, man.
Yeah. So Angela and I are working on a class for Oaksterdam. I just taught at Oaksterdam last week.
Did you really?
Intro. Yeah. We're basically a horticulture class. the intro to horticulture, like
Nice.
3-hour class, a lot of fun. We're going to do a certificate program with Oaksterdam where it is basically the cannabis breeding book. So it'll be a breeding certificate program, a lot of fun. We're still working on it. So we don't have any dates yet, but it'll be in the near future.
Nice. Dale's awesome.
Dale
Shout
is-
out Dale Sky Jones.
Dale and Jeff, the amazing people, you know?
Jeff Jones's name was signed at the bottom of my original OCBC card.
That's amazing.
Like, so just like
Just
those
put it
two,
in perspective.
just those two.
Over 20 years ago, we're looking at, 25 years ago, probably, I bet.
25 years ago. What the effect that those two have had on this industry and this movement, I don't know if people outside of the industry will ever really understand it, but those two are phenomenal in legalization, in pushing this plant forward, in education.
In education, yeah.
Ooh,
I mean,
man,
just so much good
Oaksterdam,
stuff.
like when I first saw, and when I was in prison and I saw, they're going to have a university that teaches about weed and teaches about growing and teaches about this, teaches about that. I was like, wow, man, that's cool. Like, and then to see it like now in 2025 and what they've done with it, and
Right.
and to hear you're teaching classes there. Did you ever think when you're in 92, 93, young grower, that you would ever be teaching a class in college?
No, but my 18-year-old self would be giving me the thumbs up right now. I guarantee it. You know what I mean? I think we talk about it on my show a little bit, but like, I think the only people you're really trying to impress, there's two people in life, and it's your 18-year-old self and your 80-year-old self. And we're working on the 80-year-old self, but right now the 18-year-old self will be pretty happy with where I'm at.
Nice.
It's like I wake up and I smile sometimes just looking in the mirror like, fuck, we did it. We're here, we're doing it. And, we're living a dream that took a lot of years to get to this point. And the fact is like the stars lined up for me, right? So with cannabis, with legalization, with all these things, stoners in general, like if you're here right now doing it, it's because a lot of special stuff happened along the way. We're working on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think like that gets lost sometimes.
Yeah.
That like we are at the beginning of this industry, of this whole thing, that it will be something totally different 50 years from now, right? But even all of the people now, the so-called pioneers now, like, and even that people that came before, the early dispensary owners, the early growers, we all stood on the shoulders of the men and women who came before us.
The guys who smuggled seeds from Afghanistan and Colombia and Mexico, and the guys who put, the Richard Delices of the world, right? It's like, so we are that next generation.
Delicioso, shout out.
Delicioso. Love the brand, love the people, good people. And, we're on the shoulders of guys like him.
Yeah.
Steve D'Angelo, guys like him. There's so many of those guys, and there's so many unsung heroes and unknown heroes.
Right.
Out there. I don't know about unsung, but unknown heroes.
Right. I would say unsung because in a certain sense, like, so I was walking down like this hallway that they had you blocked off at the California State Fair. So we had cannabis, they had a cannabis sales for the first time at the California State Fair, right? But the consumption area is like 400 yards away, and you got to walk through this like fenced in area because they couldn't see you walk from the dispensary to go smoke your weed, because that would be like crazy. It might influence the kids. You might be walking too happy.
Seriously.
So they had it all enclosed, but on the inside of it, they had this like cannabis history timeline.
Yeah.
And I'm walking through it and I'm looking at it, and I thought that to myself, there's so many people in this so-called like history timeline that they didn't have in there, both of the people that you just mentioned. And it was like, how do you talk about the industry, the plant legalization, the movement, and leave out like some of the just monumental characters that really pushed it forward? So
yeah,
I think that's why it's so important that we take ownership of these stories. Right? Like we tell our own stories.
100%. Yeah. I mean, we have our own new stories, and the beauty of podcasts is we get to share them with all these people that watch over the next, whoever knows, 50, 100, 200 years.
Right.
Hopefully people are still interested in what happened in 2025 when we were talking together on this podcast.
Right. Yeah. That's always crazy to me. Even when I wrote the book, I was thinking that same thing. I'm like, man, like it's here forever now.
Yeah.
It's here forever. So if, some civilization comes thousands of years after ours, they might find my book or your book and say, and that might be how they, have context into, what California was like in 2025 or something. Right. That's totally crazy. Yeah. I think like in posterity like that sometimes.
Well, it's because so much of our history as humans, a lot of it's been lost. We're rediscovering stuff all the time that we thought was one way, and it turns out it's a whole different way. And it's because of the documentation. It's like it wasn't documented properly. It was passed down, or it was one person's perspective. And we all have these different perspectives. Depending on what happens, you get these filters built up over you from the time you're born, and that's how you see the world. So your perspective is different than everybody else's.
That's true. That's so true. So you're growing up in the Bay, you do your thing, you get into software analyst.
Yeah. So right? I work with computers. I work for Charles Schwab and Bank of America and a company called Solutions Plus a long time ago. And so I got, I had a background in computers, and so that was.
Did that shape how you use tech now?
Absolutely. And I would say even when I was a personal trainer, I adopted a lot of the stuff where I was using Excel spreadsheets, and I knew how to use Excel. Not a lot of personal trainers understood. Right, they might understand the basics, but I could write my own spreadsheets, and I did all these different things even back then. And some of the stuff I apply now, it's like I know how to use, Word and Excel, and to a degree that most people don't when it comes to designing stuff. And there's people that specialize in it, and there's other people in the industry know it as well. But
right,
I really enjoy like learning from all the different things and then being able to put them together, whether it's cooking or that, and I believe like regimens, it's like when you're working with the plant, having SOPs is super important, especially at scale. Once you start getting bigger, know when to do what. And I think that's so important. And you document so that you can see the results in the end, and then also compare them from time, from one time when you harvest to the next time when you harvest.
It's I agree. Like that's the whole thing too, is like, especially coming from where we come from, where we didn't document anything.
You didn't even want to take pictures.
You didn't want to take pictures. Right? You wanted.
And now we literally know on day 23 what's happening with that plant, and what did we do last time, and what did we do the time before that, and really documenting and creating. I think the future is going to be specific profiles and ways to grow plants. So like basically, some people talk about thumb drives, whatever, but SOPs that are very cultivar specific. Based on your environment.
Cultivars. That's actually, I could see that being the future. Cultivar specific SOPs, because they are specific.
Yeah.
Like all the way down to like the parts per million that go into the nutrients.
Well, and we flush different with different cultivars. Right. Skittles, you can go day 53 in harvest or less. And then, if you want it more gassy, you would go day 63. So some people might have different preferences based on subjective qualities.
Right.
So if somebody wants more gas and more yield, they're going to go longer. And if they want more candy, they go early.
What do you think is going to be like the next big terpene profile, or we had the gas, phase. We had the candy
you're not
phase.
Smoking, but I'm going to show you a couple different things that I'd like you to smell.
Ooh, that's frosty too.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is making a comeback.
So this is a haze jack profile here.
Yep, I do have here's actually, I have a haze here so you can get in reference. And that is super silver haze.
Oh yeah.
Old school hazy haze.
That's straight up the alley super silver haze right there.
And I think this is making a comeback.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely. That is some gas, right? That's the original. This is the Crippy.
Yep.
This is a original Florida cut. And I believe that is the future.
So this is this the one that they're also called Bubba Kush? Like, is that the same like lane as that? Like,
I think it's up in the Bubba Kush category as far as cushy gas. Like it's more gassy. It's more like an OG. It's funny because the plant has thinner leaves and it's more lanky.
It definitely got like an Afghan almost smell to it.
Yeah, it has that nose burning Kush smell, right? That I associate with Kush.
Yeah. Yeah. That's frosty too.
So I got another one to show you here. And this is going to be another throwback that I think is going to come back, at least on the boutique market. I would like to say the world's ready for it. That is cookies that was hunted from, basically, that's an S1 of a cookies plant that I bred years ago, and we are making a comeback with it. That reminds me a lot.
Original GSC?
Original GSC. And I feel like this is before the Forum. This is before the Thin Mint. This is kind of what we were seeing. And we pheno hunted this one, and it's got that breadiness. It's got that cherry, and it has that gas to back it.
Good structure on it, too.
Yeah, and it doesn't yield very well. So just like the old cookies.
Right. Yep. So speaking of the cookies, you're in the Bay when the dispensaries start popping up.
Yep.
How do you begin interacting with them as a grower?
Well, it was another place to take your flower to once you harvested.
Right.
You know, it's like we took ours to Harborside. I went to PCC a lot in Berkeley on Telegraph. So that was a regular spot of mine. In fact, I sold my old Blue Dream there a lot. Those guys were the guys to buy it. They were also the ones that they didn't burn me. But Eric and Dave, I came in, you know, I'd say it's the Blue Nightmare story. We had grown exclusively Blue Dream, and they were supposed to buy 5 of them. And I think it was for $3,200 at the time. No one else was paying that much. And so I brought them in there to show them, and they had already said they were going to buy them. And so I'm thinking I have money for Christmas.
Right. Money in the bank.
Money in the bank. But there was everybody who was growing Blue Dream at the time. Mine was the best Blue Dream.
Right.
And I brought it in there, and they're like, sorry, dude, we just bought
the 10th Blue Dream that we've seen today.
Well, we just bought the 5 pounds off somebody else, and they were half price. And then I was like, well, that's fucked up. You guys said you were going to buy them. And they said, I know, but like, how could we turn it down? I said, can I see it? So they showed it to me, and I was like,
garbage.
No, it was really good.
Oh,
and so it wasn't as good as mine. Yeah, I get it though. You know what I mean? But that was like one of the years where like literally I had to borrow money from my parents. And this was a long time ago. You know, this was almost 20 years ago now. And
one of them times you're not forgetting. You're never going to forget that.
We didn't have money for Christmas that year,
right.
You know, and it was the Blue Nightmare. And like that made me hate Blue Dream for the longest time, but it's super nostalgic. It's an amazing plant.
It is. But I do understand the love-hate relationship of the Blue Dream.
Yeah.
I do.
So yeah, I think this is the year of comebacks. We're going to see a lot of stuff that we used to like Bell Bottoms making their comeback. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. Chocolate, I got a Chocolate double lemon cherry that's pretty amazing. It's got like a little haze to it. It's a chocolate haze. It's fun. We're doing that with DNA Genetics. Collaborations too.
They're saying the hazes are coming back.
They are.
Caleb over at Connected did a big summer sativa haze drop, and I don't like. To me, I'm the same way. I have a love-hate relationship with the hazes.
Yeah.
Like with the Jacks and the hazes, because they're always awesome. They smoke great, but like it's never going to be the first one I pick.
Yeah.
But I do like if they were gone, I would be heartbroken. Right. Because you always like, I guess the haze to me is the pivot weed. It's the weed like I go into in between the different stuff. Sour
Diesel is going to make a comeback. I'm predicting that right now. I've been saying it for years, but this is going to be the year for sour to come back. You know, sours and OGs, cookies. I'd love to see all that, or just reworked into something new where you get that nostalgia, right?
Do you think there's a time when the game gets to a certain point where there's nothing new anymore? Like everybody's tried every terpene cross there is?
I don't think so. I think there's always going to be different ways for ingestion too. Like we're working, you know, we have rosin carts and hand rolls. And I feel like, so with the pre-roll joints, this is my prediction, is that a lot of people are going to quit worrying about the way it looks, and they're going to focus on the way it makes them feel and the way it tastes. And if you give somebody a joint and they trust your brand, they don't need to see what it looks like.
Right.
But right now we're so focused on the way the flower looks that has to be one of the first markers, right? So we're like, okay, well, does it look good? Is it good? Is it commercially viable to where people will buy it? But if it was shreds in a bag and you never saw those shreds, you only got it in a joint, that might be the best thing in the world because you never have to see the other side of it.
That's true. I agree with you. I think that the game goes in the direction of flavor.
Yeah.
I think that's where people get the best experience. And I think really that's where they're going to start to realize that's what's making them feel in those certain ways that's making them feel, right?
Exactly.
So you're selling to Harborside. You have the Blue Dream Nightmare.
Oh yeah, we were breeding. We were playing around with breeding. Like we were fucking it up originally. You know, not doing a
everybody
good job,
was though.
But, I mean, I really had some friends that were doing a good job with breeding too, really early on. One of my friends he called it the shaman, but it was really the shamulan. He took the shaman, crossed it to the Romulan, back to the shaman.
Mm.
And so I was like, well, fuck, this breeding stuff is amazing. And I was always intrigued by it. And, we started really getting into it to try to make our own version of sour diesel. Like my group of friends loved sour. That was our thing. We basically inbred crosses of it. We back crossed and inbred those. We did a 7A sour. My buddy Micah, he did like a 9/16 sour. Really kind of trying to push the limit on what you could do and try to, I think some of the stuff was before its time, and some of the stuff, we ended up winning cups. We ended up, changing the game a little bit, I think, in the Bay Area. And, it's like we were known for loud weed. Right. And so the weed was loud. You open the bag and if it punched you in the face, that's what you wanted.
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, that was the nose. Yes, some of the best sour that I had seen was Addison, who was partners with Reggie over at Steep Hill.
Absolutely.
He had some good sour. That was some of the best that I saw.
I just talked to him, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago on chat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to get him on my podcast. He said, yeah, we need him on the show. I feel like.
Yeah. So my tie to Addy is, so I was at Seshmore. He just did an event down in LA called Seshmore. It was awesome. Had a great time. But he introduced me to my plug up in Mendocino, Jerry Scarb. And
Nice.
That was where I originally started getting our Granddaddy packs from. So Addy has a huge place in my story, in the book, and in life generally. And in this industry, I was really happy to see him continue to like do his thing and move forward.
Right.
But so going forward, the whole legalization thing happened. You guys are breeding. You're now like one of the top breeders, one of the top geneticists.
I'm just a guy.
But
thank you.
But you're a tastemaker in the industry. So that's a lot of pressure. How do you feel about like when you're going out to find the best phenos, right? Like how much pressure do you feel on that? Or is it just like a labor of love? Do you feel like I got to find something before somebody else does, or I got to find
No, there's no pressure. It's a very natural thing because I feel like it's subjective and we need to grow stuff out multiple times too, because sometimes the stuff, when we take something from seed, we actually get rid of that seed. So not get the seed, but when we grow it out, we take a clone off it, get rid of the seed start.
Right.
I want to know what I'm going to be selling clones of down the road. I'm not really concerned with that seed because you're going to get a different expression from the first generation to the second to the third, sometimes even the fourth generation of that from clone.
Right.
Right. So we get rid of that seed start. Now, if I was putting those outside and I was selling seeds and I wanted to know how 100 of them perform, that'd be a different story. But we want to license the genetics. And so it's not a race. It's very, it's more of a marathon. It's very patient. So we basically are very calculating with what we do. We get multiple people's opinion on it and we grow it out multiple times. And so we only grow it out a couple plants, the first 2 times, and then we'll scale up and scale bigger. And if it checks those boxes and people like it, and we do genetic licensing. I do a lot of breeding for other breeders. We do seed production for other big companies. So, yeah.
Real quick, talk about like, I think a lot of people think like, closet breeders or just the lay person, right? That, I like this. I got this cookie strand and I got this strawberry OG. And if I just cross them, now it's cookies and strawberry OG and it's half and half of each one. Like, how long does it take to stabilize a strain? Like, if I take these 2 strains or these 2 cultivars and I cross them, how long until you get your stable seed that you can sell out in packs?
Where it's seed and it expresses the same thing?
Yes.
It could take as early as 7 generations, but it could take many more. But then you get genetic depression, right? So like there's all these other things. So if you basically inbreed and you're going in 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 generations, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker with each of those. What you really want to do is you want to stabilize 2 different lines, cross them together. You get heterosis, which is the hybrid vigor that you're looking for. And you'll get even seeds if you can do that, creating 2 special lines. You do the OG where it's basically special. You do the strawberry where it's special. Now you have strawberry OG, right? And you'll get something that expresses the middle and you'll get the entire progeny to express basically the same. But what happens is breeders now, they're crossing with the OG with whatever strawberry, and then they're basically inbreeding that, right? And the problem with that is there's a lot of phenotypical variation, which means seeds come out differently. You have one that looks like if you had stuff that leans towards a sativa and one that leans towards an indica. I'm talking about the morphology of the plant. So the
Right.
leaf structure, the height,
Right.
the flowering time. If you take those together and they're not very stable, you're going to get stuff that's all over the place.
Right.
But now if you're going to stabilize those lines, you breed them together and you'll get something right in the middle.
Okay. You said something that I want to touch on real quick because
Sure.
this is in the market and a lot of people in the market like talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
It's the sativa indica hybrid and the labeling of the cultivars for the customer, right?
Mhm.
I believe that the early dispensaries, and I'll raise my hand.
Yeah.
Steve, you're on this too, Steve, is when the customer would come in or the patient would come in, we would say, well, sativa makes you feel like this. It makes you feel up, cerebral. It's indica makes you feel couch locked, body high, all those things, right? And we narrowed the customer into thinking like, now when something says sativa, that's the only thing that'll make me feel like this. Or now when something says indica, it's the only thing that'll make me feel like this.
Yeah.
And now I feel like it's also our job, because that was false science of what we were teaching people, to say like, and what we know about the endocannabinoid system and how different cannabinoids interact with different individuals and all these things, right? We know, and we still don't know a plethora of information, right? We're at the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
How important do you think it is to educate people on terpene profiles rather than us continue to do the indica sativa hybrid thing?
I think that there's so many different ways to skin a cat, and I think that we need to go in every direction. Because I think that we've got guys that are focusing on the science of it, and we got guys that are doing the boutique craft breeding.
Right.
And I think there's something for everybody, and quality is so subjective, right?
Right.
So I think there's the medicinal side too, as far as like drug discovery.
That's actually a good point, right? A lot of times we miss that part.
Right. We forget that it's a medicine, right? We start talking about rec, and then we forget it has an effect, and it basically makes the world a better place, but it's also medicine.
Right. No, that's so true. And I think that gets lost, especially in the rec market now, is what it's always began from since the beginning of time, right? Like the Chinese have this in medical journals like thousands and thousands of years ago. So I think it is a good point for us to remember that it's not always about terpene profile. Well, it is about terpene profile in the sense of if it helps you medicinally, but in the sense of like, sometimes it's just the effect. Right. Strictly effect, or the way it makes somebody feel or cure a certain ailment that they feel. And it doesn't matter what it looks like or smells like or anything. Yeah. And I think that could get lost on us sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean, we're just scratching the surface of all this stuff with drug discovery and figuring out what works for what ailments. And someday they're going to be like, well, you have this. Well, the majority of people that take this, they get this result. Right. And I think it's going to replace a lot of modern medicine. I would like to think that
I hope so.
I think in as much as people are hating on AI lately, I think the potential of AI for drug discovery is amazing. The amount it can process, amount of information that it can process. And then, it's like when you basically can take the profiles of all these people and all the things that has happened to them, I think the amount of ability that AI has to improve the world is a lot greater than the other.
Then it taking over the world,
John
getting
Connor.
our nuclear codes and just nuking us.
Right.
And making sure it survives. One of my friends who's going to be on one of our next episodes is actually like neck deep in doing the AI robot building right now. And I told him, I said, we're going to come back in time and it's you that we're going to have to kill. Yeah. So it's funny. So what do you have coming up, James? What are the projects or stuff that you guys have coming up?
Big collaboration with my boys down in LA, Cannabis Brothers. On 420, we're dropping some of the Wi-Fi times ZBX. I think we're calling it the pheno that they're releasing in flowers, the KGB pheno, which is the California gas bill spelled with a K. Okay. And so 420 is a big day for us for our drop. Flow Gardens, we're working with them in the hemp space. We're doing breeding. And they did some pheno hunting and some selections of some of our stuff that's currently available. But we're going to be releasing hand-rolled joints with Flow Garden, I think, in the near future.
Nice.
And we're going to hit the rec scene with cultivation partners. we don't do any cultivation. I'm research and development exclusively, right? We do the nursery model a little bit. We will be doing direct sales of clones to consumers across the United States. Everything is Farm Bill compliant.
Let me touch a little bit on that.
Absolutely.
The Farm Bill changed the game.
It did.
Let's be straight up.
Yeah.
Like it changed the game. The way our industry has responded and been able to find ways to be able to get hemp across the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Legally, federally legally.
Anything below 0.3% THC
right.
is now considered hemp.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Lou went to jail for seeds and clones. And this wasn't that long ago, right? This
I had a friend who went to
2015,
yeah.
right? In 2015, he spent time in jail for seeds and clones in California.
Yeah.
That's crazy. For 1,000 clones. I mean,
my
it was
friend
a good
got
amount.
4 years for a bag of seeds in Yosemite.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, 4 years.
Think that, and now I have millions of seeds that I'm sitting on that we make every year.
Right.
And it's fully legal. I mean, it's like just any other crop. And it's slowly but surely turning into agriculture, which I love. I love that, even though it's not just normal agriculture, it's like this hybrid model.
Right.
Which is also amazing.
Do you see the two lanes merging?
Yeah, I mean, I see
cannabis and hemp.
Cannabis.
I mean, well, same thing, but
it's
what I mean.
like this big loophole right now in Texas, right? So I think there's more dispensaries selling hemp in Texas than there are legal dispensaries in recreational in California. Right?
Yeah, for sure. 100.
And so I think that the Farm Bill may eventually change, but it's really based on how it's written, it's really hard to change it. And I don't think they're going to change the source law with the seeds and the clones. I think that's just a tough one because cannabis sativa L is what hemp and what cannabis, they're both the same plant, right? So it's so hard to separate the two in regards.
I don't see Trump changing it. I really don't.
No, but I think if Trump doesn't change it, which I would love to see Trump do, if he doesn't change it, it's going to be the next main point for the election, right? Whoever the next president coming in, it's going to be like, are you going to do this or are you not going to do it? Because I think there's so many people behind it now.
What do you mean in the sense of like?
Who's running next?
Oh, okay.
Whichever, Democrat, Republican, whoever's running next, I think it's going to be a big talking point. And
the hemp lane.
Like legalization, federal legalization, which I think once it's federally legal across the board and treated just like tobacco. I mean, I think tobacco or alcohol, we can use those as examples. Alcohol is kind of strange because they do it different in every state, which is kind of what they're doing with cannabis.
Okay, federal legalization, interstate commerce. How many years away? Go.
I would say it's between 3 and 7 years away. Right. From actually being,
I think that's legit.
Somewhere in that range.
Yeah. I would say 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. I would love to see it. And I think it would help so many businesses out. I think the other thing that needs to change is the farm to table model. So you can go to Humboldt County or you can go to Vermont or Maine or wherever the heck you're going. And you can go to the cultivation site where they're growing outdoors or indoors or whatever. And it's just like going to Lagunitas, right? Lagunitas Brewery, or just like going to Alpha Omega Winery.
You're talking crazy now.
Dude,
don't start talking crazy on this podcast.
Future. And this is the future. I mean, we're talking about terroir. We can throw in that. I want to try the sour diesel from this ridge as opposed to this ridge, and they get their designations. And then also you can go buy direct from the farm, right? Because right now there's so many people's hands out. They want their tax on this. They want their tax on that. The distributor wants his little piece. So by the time that eighth that went for $14 that the grower sold, it's now a $50 eighth or a $60 eighth. It's like
unsustainable model.
It's not sustainable at all. And I mean, I'm looking forward to the future. I think we learn from our mistakes. We pivot.
I think in cannabis, we work backwards a lot. Like we say, okay, we'll pass it and it may be crappy. And then let's like kind of work back to fix it. I think that's the way we work a lot of times on this.
Yeah. And I mean, we were the first in California to go medical, right? In 1996, 215. And we weren't the first to go rec. And I wish we would have learned from the other states a little bit more, but I think we saw Washington and Colorado go first. Mm-hmm. And, and then Oregon with their oversaturation of licenses. Right. So it's not easy. It's like, cause especially when you're paving the way for something to try to figure it out. There's no rule book. And I think a lot of people think they're doing good things and they do the wrong thing. I mean, with those type of situations, especially with, limiting licenses, how many do you want to limit it to? Because you do want to limit some so it doesn't happen like it did in Oregon. But also if you limit it too much, then it's just big business and you take mom and pops out of the way.
Right. It's like that weird like Goldilocks zone of like how much government intervention on business do you want? You know, some people will say none. Some people will say a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that is interesting. And we're seeing right now that I feel like we're at the point where the government's super involved in the cannabis industry. And the more they kind of ease up and let it breathe, I think the more sustainable the model becomes.
Slowly but surely. I mean, they took away cultivation tax last year, which I think is a good thing.
Right. No, that was huge. That was huge. And they're opening the event licenses, which is, you know, lets some of the dispensaries do things and sell other products and hold events.
Smoking lounges just got passed.
Lounge.
Dude, I love
huge.
smoking
Sacramento.
lounges.
Man, shout out Sacramento.
My house
for
is a
opening.
smoking lounge. You know, it's like you drink COVID, it was the big smoking lounge. We also used to smoke and hang out. But yeah, smoking lounges, public smoking lounges, I think is amazing. The concept is great.
It's going to save dispensaries.
It's going to save
because
dispensaries.
again, like when it goes to federal legalization,
yeah,
interstate commerce is happening. The dispensary no longer has the hold on the main vehicle of how you get cannabis, right?
Right.
So now what draws you to the dispensary? And it's going to be the sense of community, the sense of going over there and seeing my boy James and my boy Ryan there. And we get to fire up and
then
hang out.
Once we have interstate commerce, we got House of Cultivar from Seattle. We got their flower. We got, we got Sunburn Cannabis from, Florida. We got this company from Maine and New York, and we can all get it in one place. I feel like that might not happen for a while. They might just stick state to state for a while, but I feel like that's the future. And I want to access everywhere. I want to go to the Caribbean and buy my strains and also buy Caribbean varieties in the United States. I'd love it if we could help those people out.
Right.
You know what I mean? That are in Jamaica, that are in the islands, that are in other countries that are very poor, and to be able to provide some sort of support financially,
right?
Supporting the cannabis industry in those places. Because I feel like cannabis in so many levels can save the world if it's applied to the right things.
I agree with that. Well, James, thanks for coming on to the show, brother.
Yeah. Man,
it was excellent to have you on here.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you at when they want to tap in?
So if people are trying to find out more about James Loud, you can go to James Loud at Instagram, James Loud Podcast, jamesloudgenetics.com. We're on Amazon. You can look up my name for the Cannabis Breeding book. Find me at Oaksterdam. I'll be at Spanibus. I will be at Mary Jane. I will be at Reggae on the River 100% this year.
Ooh,
I love reggae.
That's huge.
So yeah.
I might have to catch up with you on that one.
Yeah. And so you want seeds, go jamesloudgenetics.com, or you can search in Google for James Loud Genetics and find some good stuff. Or clones. We're going to be doing clones direct to consumer this year, which I'm super excited about.
That is exciting. jamesloudgenetics.com. Clones direct.
If you're looking for hemp from James Loud Genetics on the hemp side, you can go to Flow Gardens, check them out. They have amazing stuff. Love those guys. We're going to be doing some collabs together. And then in Rec, we should have some interesting collabs coming up, like with Cannabis Brothers this year, and potentially Sunset Connect, and maybe even Profit.
You already know Profit's in there.
Absolutely.
That's right. Well, thanks, brother. It's good to have you, man.
Dude, thank you so much for inviting me on your show. Congratulations. I look forward to seeing where it goes.